Angelica was experiencing a quiet power. As she was amazed that the previous 2 weeks, including today, she woke up before the alarm clock went off. And what was amazing is when she started her spiritual practices, she was the snooze button maven. She was masterful. She could just reach over and hit that sucker without even looking. Sometimes she would snooze it 4 times before she got out of bed. In fact, she adjusted the time on her alarm clock to be earlier. She'd have plenty of time to get all of her snoozing in. But even with the adjusted time, she was starting to wake up before the alarm went off. Totally blew her mind, amazed her that this was even up in the realm of possibility. And that wasn't even the best part of what she was starting to experience after her spiritual growth and development practices. And we'll talk about those after our meditation and healing. Welcome to Spirit360 Fellowship. We're an online community of like minds and kindred spirits. We are a group of old souls, empaths, highly sensitive people, some extroverts, some introverts, but we're all spiritual seekers, searching for spiritual answers to life's problems. More importantly, we're training ourselves to develop spiritual solutions to those same problems. I'm T.S. Hall, the Stoic Medium, and I am always here to help you rediscover your spirit's intent and start walking your path with purpose and intention. Again, welcome to Spirit360 Fellowship. We're so glad you found us, yet not at all surprised you did. Today's topic is exponential spiritual growth. How do we experience fulfillment, satisfaction, and contentment all the time? That is the promise of enlightenment that the Buddha talked about. Allowing yourself to exist in 3-part harmony, mind, body, spirit, aligned at one place, at each moment of time. Our friend Angelica was just getting the first glimpses into this possibility. Most of Angelica's life didn't change. She was still existing in a chaotic world, in a chaotic job with hit or miss experiences with relationships. She was starting to recognize, though, that very few things were getting under her skin. She reacted differently than she had just a few months earlier when she started her practices. She started looking back through her journals and realized that she was getting close to 18 months of her practices. She started out pretty quickly and got one meditation in. Then after about 6-7 months, she figured out how to work in that second meditation, because it's easy to do one of them every day, but the second one doesn't seem to be quite so easy to interrupt our schedule with. And as she began this practice of practicing, slowly starting to develop her intuition, ESP, and mediumship on command and in a verifiable way, she realized that the only way that happened is with this 3-part harmony we discussed about. And her mental progress allowed her to stop obsessing on stupid stuff. That argument she had 3 months earlier with someone, that thing that happened in the 3rd grade, which always was haunting her mind, that disapproval that she always felt when she looked in the mirror. Anytime a new problem came up, she journaled herself through it. She got present to what she was feeling, got the feelings out of her head and onto paper, and then over the next few days and weeks, she would start to consciously replace that problem with a concern that was aligned with her new spiritual beliefs and values. She began the process of recognizing the triggers that would take her down the bunny hole and started managing those triggers. They went from her life was going good at green, something would start to trigger her, she would go to a yellow flag, and before she went to a red flag, where she would get uncontrolled in her thoughts and actions and emotions, she could de-escalate things and return back to a green flag of being present, mindful, and aware. She was starting to recognize the moments when she was not mindfully present. She went from consciously trying to be mindfully present to really recognizing when she wasn't mindfully present and could choose to be present. And life was getting just a little bit boring. And when she recognized that, she understood that she was making progress. Because in the past, she was very much addicted to drama and excitement, regardless the cost. Angela's body was starting to get a restful, restorative sleep. So much so that she fell asleep very quickly and awoken before the alarm went off, rested and ready to be present and take on the day. She started to disarm her stress triggers that caused her to eat mindlessly and started to bring a mindfulness into the food choices she made. She started to feel the need and not resist the urge to get off the couch and move her body a little bit. In the past, she would sit on the couch stressed out, eating, watching TV, mindlessly for hours at a time. The most interesting thing was her acceptance of her body. Her whole life, she had always thought that her body was not the right body. And as she started to accept the body she had, a great deal of peace came over her. And that acceptance started to unveil an attractiveness that she had never seen before. And the way it started to manifest in her life is she started to recognize the different types of people who were attracted to her and starting to knock, wondering why she was a little bit different. Spiritually speaking, Angelica was starting to rediscover her spirit. As she began to more deeply trust her intuitive knowing, it had always been there before, but this rational override always was in a conflict with her intuitive knowing. Oftentimes, she would want something that she didn't really need, and the instinct, the survival part, the chaos agent of her ego had to have it. But she'd played that game so many times, she realized she didn't really need it because once she got it, it made no difference. She started to trust that intuitive knowing of would this make a difference for her life or not. She started to cultivate a namaste mindset, her spirit, seeing and recognizing the spirit in others, regardless of the physicalness of their appearance. As she started to connect with other people on an energetic level, even the most distracting, jerky people in the world, she saw a light, a glimmer of hope that allowed her to connect with them on a level that wasn't ever possible before. She began the process of learning and connecting with her spirit guides and teachers. And as she started to have this connection with people who unconditionally loved her, their unconditional love started to rub off on her. She'd always been okay accepting others as they were, but she rarely had an opportunity or accepted herself as she was. But that was starting to shift and change. The most important aspect of her spirituality is that she started to recognize the shadows cast before the future. She could take action ahead of time. She realized that she had very little control over the future and how it approached her. Most of the things in the real world she had absolutely no control over. But she had absolute control over her response to what showed up in her vibration, what showed up in life, what showed up in the universe and world around her. That's where she started to embrace the spirit of living, the energy of being present at this moment in time, seeing what's coming forward, seeing what's coming forward and towards you, and consciously taking actions to sidestep, go around, or go through whatever was being presented before her. And as she started to embrace and engage the spirit of living, she recognized that it was a result of this three-part harmony, mind, body, and spirit, aligned in a moment of now. The exponentialness of her spiritual growth was the fact that as she quit resisting what her body knew, she started to attract possibilities and recognize the possibilities she was attracting. And as she started to see what was coming into her vibration, and recognized through that namaste mindset the beauty of the people she was attracting now. Whereas before it was more of a physical attraction. Now it was a spiritual attraction. Less challenges showed up in her vibration. Less disharmony showed up in her world that she had to combat against. With the new opportunities around her and the less defensiveness she needed, she started to manifest opportunities because she stopped prejudging them. That ego part of herself says, oh, you can't do that, you don't want that, that won't work, was being replaced with, hey, that feels different, that feels right, that rings true. And as that intuitive knowing began to blossom before her, she started to more effortlessly materialize results. And she became ready to receive them because she had already predetermined that this was something she wanted and consciously allowed her body and her mind and her spirit to receive the abundance that was all around her. Angelica learned to see and accept the world she wanted, the future she wanted. This easy button, this effortless effort became about because she trained her mind to be present at the same place and time that her body was at. She created and caused this spiritual congruence, this presence that allowed the light within her to shine. And the more she recognized her power and her light shined, the more effortlessly she attracted people and invited them into her life because there was no disconnect, there was no disharmony, there was no fear that she was going to be manipulated or lied to, because she started to spot those things ahead of time. And the synergy of this harmony allowed her in each area of her life to make conscious choices, the decisions of which allowed her to remove the obstacles from her awareness to allow things to show up in her space just because she wanted them, because she knew that their presence in her life would make a difference. She started to become more quickly connected with the future she wanted, sidestepping the future she didn't want. She recognized whether or not anything coming towards her she could change. She started to accept it if something coming towards her was not changeable. More importantly, by being present more and more of the time, she was able to spot the difference between what she could change and what she needed to accept more quickly. And that lack of resistance, that stepping into the center path of her life, allowed her to devote more and more energy to creating and causing what she wanted instead of avoiding what she didn't want. She felt alive in the first time, she felt alive for the first time in a long time. And as her spiritual growth began to create more and more harmony, she felt that presence of mind, spirit, and body as aliveness. This effortlessly stepping into your next step, knowing where it will lead you and not being surprised, was the center path that many great masters had talked about, that middle path. She chose to give up drama. She chose to choose and trust her knowings and dwell in the boring realm of creation and causation, where foregone conclusions were created in her mind before she even started taking action. This enhanced her experience of being alive. This allowed her to create a life by design, her design, because that's what she wanted. As she let go of the resistance, all the energy was focused in one direction, moving her forward, pulling her forward into the future she wanted. And that's where the exponential results came in. So the practice of being present and the practices to get you there open the door and expand your awareness, allowing you to pick and choose your next step on the journey of life. And it's the spiritual growth making you the creator of your experience of being alive. And as you accept that role as your creator and stop resisting the past that is showing up in your mind, you start to create a future that is of your choosing. And that, my friends, is heaven on earth. My highest blessings.